Hey guys, this is Diva here, and in this video I'm going to explain everything you need to know about the new Dream Enhancement / Reincarnation mechanic that's coming to World of Visions for its 3rd anniversary. But before we dive into all of that detail, I want to just make a quick mention of the live stream that I'm doing this Sunday evening, roughly 7 hours after the global server's reset timing. Which is basically when the JP version of the game will come out of maintenance and into the 3rd anniversary update. So on that live stream we will be pulling for Sephiroth, as well as checking out all of the new 3rd anniversary content, including doing at least one unit for Dream Enhancement / Reincarnation. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. And once you're a subscriber, if you go to your YouTube homepage or the subscriptions tab, you should start seeing this scheduled live stream appear among all the videos. Alright, with that out of the way, let's talk about Dream Enhancement. As you can see here, I've actually made a bunch of slides that basically catalog the process from start to end. And also closer to the end of the video, I'll also explain what are the many ways you can obtain the new materials required for this mechanic. Really, these new materials are the bottleneck, and they pretty much told us all the ways you can get them during the live stream last night. But before you get into that, I have to actually first explain how the mechanic works. Starting with the fact that not all characters will actually get this right from the beginning. So instead, this Dream Enhancement mechanic is going to be rolled out in batches, similar to Master Ability 2, and the first batch of characters will include basically all of the FF7 characters, Sephiroth, Cloud, Tifa, Aerith, and Barret. Yuffie has also been confirmed to be one of the units that will have this feature, but because Yuffie is coming out 1 week after Sephiroth, they didn't actually include her in the list here. And then for the other non-limited units, we have Antlers, who is coming out alongside Sephiroth 2 days from now. And then the rest are the older units: Oberon, King Mons, Mon's father, whose name I won't pronounce because I'll end up just butchering it, Stern, and Mediana. And then for MR units we have MR Mont and Nasha, and for SR units we have Little Leela this time. Now, although you don't see any R rarity and N rarity units in this list, it doesn't mean that they cannot perform Dream Enhancement. They can. It's just that they are not, none of those units are included in this first batch. Okay, with that out of the way, let's talk about how this thing works and what you will actually need to do to get the benefits out of them. So basically, to begin with, once your unit is at level 120, fully maxed with all the ability board capped out and all that, when you go to the unit building screen, this is what you'll see. You will see that on the right hand side here there's a new button, unlock Dream Enhancement. And to do this, you will need, for MR units, you will need 60 mindspheres, and then you will need a single piece of the MR Antler and these orbs and fragment of thoughts. Now, the quantities required for Antlers, orbs, and fragment of thoughts do not change depending on the rarity, but the amount of mindspheres do. So for UR rarity, you will actually need 120 mindspheres instead. And then for the lower rarities, is some other different number that they didn't talk about. So the first, at this point, I think the big thing that is on a lot of players' minds is that, with this feature needing another 120 UR mindspheres, doesn't that mean that the developers have essentially pushed the maximum number of shots required from 1000, which is 600 shots and 400 mindspheres, to now 1120? And the answer to that is no. That's actually not the case at all, because you will be able to use generic replacement mindspheres instead of this. And let me just switch my slide to the in-game notices. So what I mean is if we go down all the way to this section here, so there will be this new generic mindspheres that you can now use in place of the units mindspheres for Dream Enhancement. Now, do know that these rainbow mindspheres, or rather this generic mindspheres, cannot be used for EX job upgrade up to level 120. This is only meant for the Dream Enhancement feature from level 120 to 140. And the way it works is you trade some of your mindspheres, your excess mindspheres for some units into the generic ones. For the R rarity mindsphere, it's shown here that the amount, or rather the trade conversion, is 5:1. But for other rarities, they have not actually confirmed on the stream yet, and the reason for that is because they're still doing final adjustments to make sure that the numbers make sense. So we'll have to wait for 2 more days before they can let us know what is the exact exchange ratio for MR and UR mindspheres. But one thing that they did share is that, you know, on top of taking all your excess UR unit mindspheres and trading them for the generic UR mindspheres, you can actually also trade up from MR generic mindspheres to UR generic mindspheres. So if you have a lot of MR mindspheres sitting around, you can actually use those to trade for the generic ones and then upgrade them into rainbow mindspheres for your UR units. So really, with all this talk about mindspheres, really people don't really have to be afraid of, you know, how much extra mindspheres it will require, because this is not at all the bottleneck required, or rather this is not the limiting factor for this new feature. Really, it's the Antlers and the Scrolls that determine how much of this mechanic you can actually use for your units. So again, like I said, closer to the end of the video, I have a slide prepared where I will show you, you know, all the different ways you can get these items. But for now, let's head back into my slides for the process. So once you have the resources required, all you have to do is hit this button, and the next screen you'll see is that you have unlocked Dream Enhancement. Straight away your level goes from 120 to 121, and you will get a bunch of passives similar to Master Ability. So in MR1's case, he gets Missile Resistance up, All Elemental Resistance up, and an ability replacement for his ability Killer Drain Blade. Now for the ability replacement here, the upgrade they mentioned on the stream is that Killer Drain Blade will now also do AP damage and drain it to recover AP for mods. So depending on the unit you do this Dream Enhancement on, they could have different passes or they could have different ability upgrades, and all these are determined, you know, or rather they are customized to each individual unit, and they are given to the unit based on the role that the unit performs in game. So for example, MR Mons, he is pretty much a tank, so that's why he's getting a bunch of defensive passives. Okay, so after you see the screen, if you tap on it one more time, you return to the unit building screen, but now the level up button has now been changed to the Dream Enhancement button, and when you tap on that, you come out, this menu will come out, and this is where all the magic happens. On the upper left corner, you see that this is where your EX level is indicated, 1 out of 20 for MR Mont, and it says here reincarnation 0 times. On the right hand side, it says over here, yellow stars, 3 more remaining this round. This is going to be important for reincarnation. We'll talk about this in a little bit. On the lower left hand corner is where you find all your passives for this character, or rather the Dream Enhancement passives. So like I said earlier, this is Missile Resistance up 7, All Elemental Resistance up 2, and then Drain Killer Replacement. So these numbers here at level 1, they don't seem like a lot, but as you level up your EX level, they eventually get to pretty substantial numbers, which we'll get into in just a bit. Finally, you have two buttons on the left and right hand side. On the left side is reincarnation. You can actually use this button to perform reincarnation at any point, regardless of your EX level. But for reasons I'll explain later, you really want to make sure you get all three of the yellow stars first before you even consider doing reincarnation. And then on the right hand side, this button here will increase your EX level. The amount of resources required in terms of JP points and the statues and EXP cubes do slightly increase with each EX level upgrade, but really it's not that significant at all. If we go ahead and hit it once, we'll see that at level 2, oops, I think, yeah, correct. At level 2, we've gained some stats for HP, some stats for AP, and some for ATK, attack strength. And all of these are completely random. But what is not random are the maximum values as indicated here on the right hand side in white text. We see that through this system, the maximum amount of HP MR Mont can add to his unit is 3,300, and so on and so forth for the other stats. Now, all of these stats you see here, the theoretical maximum, are all determined based on the role of the unit. So for Mont, because he's a tank, naturally he will have higher HP total, and then higher maximum possible ATK and critical evasion. But if it's a magic attacker, then you will see the numbers for some of these limits reduce, but you will definitely get a higher maximum MAG. So just to take note, this part here, the maximum is determined by the roll of the unit, so it's not random. But when you are actually rolling for the bonus stats, all of this is completely random. And then another thing that can happen as you're leveling up is you also have a chance to get a yellow star. And what happens is at level 7 in the process that they showed us live last night, at level 7 they finally managed to hit a yellow star, and it's randomly assigned one of the stat categories. In this case, it went into the dexterity slot. Now, one thing to note here is that the stars are independent of the yellow stats that you're rolling for. So in this case, they receive a yellow star in dexterity, but as you can see here, they still have not actually rolled any bonus stats in dexterity. So just to be clear, the stars that you receive at random and the stats that you receive at random are independent of one another. So what this means is that if you are intending to strengthen your unit a bunch, then you should be using the reincarnation button as soon as you hit 3 yellow stars. Whereas if you don't intend to reincarnate any further, and you're just intending to use the unit after you max out your rolls and get to EX level 20, then then this is what you focus on. Now, as for what reincarnation actually does, we're going to scroll ahead to level 17. At this point, you can see that you have more stats and you have more stars obtained, and also the resources required have went up. And then finally at level 20, this is what it looks like. So as to what reincarnation does, when you hit the reincarnation button, everything here, all the bonus stats, all the EX levels, and the passive numbers will all be set to level 1. But the stars that you have for the yellow stars, they will be converted into green stars, which will add permanent stats, permanent green stats over here that will stay with you regardless of how much further you will roll. So I'll demonstrate it in one moment. But basically, when you hit the reincarnate button, you will actually need to burn these resources to go through with it. For MR unit, you will need 10 mindspheres, as well as 20 scrolls, and 15 each of the Awakening Prism and Fragment of Thought. For UR units, you will need 20 of the UR mindspheres. And of course, you have a choice of how much of the unit's mindspheres and how much of the generic mindspheres you want to use. You can go half and half, or you can go, fully into one of them. And finally, after you've performed reincarnations, this is what the screen will now look like. So as you can see here, the yellow stars have been converted to green stars, and they add permanent stats to the unit. One dexterity star gave MR Mond +2 in dexterity, and then for the 2 green stars added to critical evasion, MR Mond has gotten +2 in critical evasion because of that. And then you basically repeat the whole process over again, get up to EX level 20 if you want to use the unit as is, or if you want to reincarnate further, then you just keep rolling until you receive all 3 yellow stars, and then you hit the reincarnate button to convert those yellow stars into green stars. So that's basically the entire process of how this thing works. So now we'll get into the details of what you will actually need in order to, use up the limited, or rather all the different ways you can obtain the new type of resources that will be the bottleneck for this feature. Whoops, sorry, there's a bit of a thunderstorm over at where I'm at right now as I'm recording this, so apologize for the break. But now we'll head into the slide that I prepared for you guys for the resources. So to use the new feature, you need 2 things, right? You need the antlers on the left hand side, and then you need the scrolls, which are used for reincarnation. Now for the antlers, they said on the stream last night that you can get them from presents, as in the official live stream presence. You can also get them from login bonuses, as well as certain challenge missions. These are the bingo board stuff that we're talking about. And then of course you can also get antlers in the shop using gold or visual. You can also potentially get them from daily purchase bonus, although it's not been fully decided at which point in the daily purchase bonus you will get this, as well as other ways in the future that they have not decided on. But basically for antlers, their approach is, as and when it makes sense, they will try and give this out to players so that people have enough to actually start using this feature with a bunch of units. Now for scrolls, again, you can get them with from your presence, from login bonuses. And then what's different here is that they will also be available as a summon bonus. There's no word on whether they mean that scrolls will be handed out similar to Vision and Soul Stars, in that when you do a 10 pull, depending on the rarity of the unit, then that's the rarity of the scroll you get. We don't know if that's the case, or if it's the other type of summon bonus, meaning when you perform summons at a certain step, you will sometimes get some bonus scrolls along with your pulls. So they didn't indicate which type it is, but I'm going to guess it's going to be the latter, meaning at certain steps in the 9th step or in certain summons you might receive scrolls as a bonus, but we'll find out in 2 days time. And then on top of that, you can of course also get scrolls from shop using your gold or visual whenever they make it possible for you to pick them up in the shop. And most importantly, for scrolls, one of the biggest ways that you will get them on a monthly basis is actually through the friend and guild medals, which you will begin to be able to trade for starting in December. Now they explained on the stream that because the guild and friend medal lineup for November is already out, and they can't really add to that unless they refresh everything. So that's why only from December onwards will we be able to use our friend medals and guild medals to trade for scrolls. So as you can see here, really there is, like, even if you're a spender, you don't actually get much of an advantage in terms of these new limited resources. So I've actually seen some global players getting all worried about how some spenders, maybe some wheels might be able to just one-shot buy a load of scrolls to stock up on and use them right away on all their units. No, that is actually not the case at all. You will not be able to do that. All of these materials are gated, and even if you do spend, the only advantage you can get is maybe you will receive a few more antlers here and there through the daily purchase bonus. And then for scrolls, basically the only paying mechanic is if you want to do certain summons to get these scrolls. So basically, I'm anticipating the number of scrolls that you can get from summon bonuses will not be nearly as much as those that you can get from the friend and guild medals. So really, you don't have to worry about this being a pay-to-win mechanic. It's definitely not, because they explain that this thing is all about long-term viability for older units. So really, a lot of the reincarnation part doesn't even come in until you are able to stockpile a bunch of the scrolls, so that you can do reincarnation a lot of times on a single unit. And even by then, even if you have a lot of scrolls stocked up, you still really have to make the decision of whether or not you want to spend all of your resources into one unit, a few units, or if you want to spread them out across all of the meta units that you regularly play. So in that sense, this feature definitely allows for some level of customization. You can take a really crap unit that is not relevant in the meta and suddenly make them super powerful if you want to, basically spend all your scrolls onto that one single unit. Or you can, do a more sensible approach, which is, you look at what are the meta units you always play, and then you can sort of spread out these resources across those units. Now, that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover for this video, but before we go off, I wanted to translate and convey to everyone some of the notes, or rather the message that Operations Producer Nakai-san said on the stream last night regarding this mechanic. Because throughout the whole thing, he really just wanted, players to understand that, this new mechanic, please don't feel like this new mechanic, the Dream Enhancement and Reincarnation mechanic, is absolutely needed for your enjoyment of the game. It's really not meant to be that. Not everybody has to do this, has to take advantage of this mechanic, because this is really meant as a long-term growth mechanic for the top end of players. It's meant as something that will, allow those players to, better compete in leaderboards and other top-end PvP content. So really, don't stress yourselves out. There is plenty of other content that you can clear in the game without needing to use Dream Enhancement or Reincarnation at all. And so he understands that not every single player can actually take advantage of this new mechanic. So for example, newer players, they cannot do Dream Enhancement at all because they don't have the required resources. So for those players, all they have to do is focus on building up their units to level 99 and possibly to level 120 at some point, and that's totally fine. You really don't have to force yourself to use this mechanic. Just like Trust Stones is there, but there are people who use it and there are people who don't really want to bother with it, and then they just go and do the bare minimum for Trust Stones. So you can take that approach with Dream Enhancement as well. But for the people who can actually, use this feature, don't stress yourselves over it as well. That's one of the other things he talked about. Really, all you need to do with Dream Enhancement is to start unlocking this for the units that have it, and then going to EX level 20. And that is good enough to play the unit at a PvP setting with like 95% of its full potential already. You really don't have to do much more than that. But later on, after you've built up a bunch of resources, after you've stockpiled on a bunch of scrolls, and you feel like making your unit stronger, then that's when you should be looking at doing that's when you should be looking at doing reincarnations. And again, at that stage in the game, you have to make the choice of whether you want to dump all your scrolls into one unit, or if you want to spread them out across several units that you play regularly. Alright, so that's everything you need to know about this feature. Now, once again, on the live stream this Sunday evening, I will be showcasing how this works. I will be running it with at least one unit. So if you are interested in checking that out, please subscribe to the channel and check out the scheduled live stream, and I will see you guys next time.